A group of leading scientists have come out in support of Professor Glenda Gray after a senior health official called for her to be investigated for daring to criticize the government's lockdown strategy. Joining us now to clarify a way out of the debacle is Professor Prof Venter, who is the Divisional Director of Ezinja at Wits University. Professor Venter, welcome to you once again. Before we got interrupted there, we were speaking about your reasons why that you've decided to back and support Professor Gray after she's been lashed out at by the health minister over her findings and her thinking around the lockdown period.
I think Professor Gray was simply articulating what we're all feeling at the moment, is that government is not communicating its rationale around certain regulations, certain decisions it's making that don't make sense. And it's been coming for a while from the scientists. What she's saying is not an isolated opinion. It's one most of us share in one form or another, is that we don't understand some of these things. We understand that government's under pressure, that it may make mistakes, but we think at least we've got a massive compact between society and government at this point. We deserve better explanations for some of the things that are being put together. And I think as scientists, we've been quite worried that some of these things don't make a whole lot of sense. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not explicable. There might be reasons why we might need to make some strange decisions that actually have the basis, but at least explain them more clearly to the society. I think what chilled us a little bit was the lashing out at her when what she was expressing was what we're all saying at the moment, which is please explain things better to us, and that some of these regulations do appear to be absurd or actually destructive in terms of what we're trying to accomplish.
Now, the Ministerial Advisory Committee was tasked with assisting government. What exactly was the role that the committee had to play when it comes to interacting with government?
So the Ministerial Advisory Committee was set up with a large number of experts and then subgroups within that were tasked to advise government on certain things. And it's done that really well, and I think I'm quite proud to be part of that group because the work that's being produced from there is actually of a very high quality. Where we have not been asked our advice, and I think what's disturbing us, is on aspects of the lockdown, the reasoning for extending the lockdown, some of the regulations and things. Those were not asked, and that's a problem because the reason for the lockdown is a health reason. It's to protect our health facilities and to protect our population from the morbidity and mortality of the virus. And for that reason, we've got people with public health experience. We've got people with expertise in how to wash hands, on masks and things like that. Those people were drawn into aspects of the advice, but not the overall advice. That was just taken away. And government keeps saying we are adopting a scientific approach, which is what WHO recommends. I guess mine and many other people's questions are, who are these scientists? Who are these epidemiologists, which is the WHO recommendations, that are giving you advice around the specifics around the regulation? We have modelers within the MAC who have finally had their data revealed and to the public for public scrutiny, but that just tells you how many infections are coming, how many deaths we're anticipating. It doesn't give us insights into the reasons around how to regulate the society.
Now, Health Minister Dr. Willem Kiezer has come out and lashed out at Professor Gray, saying that her criticism of the lockdown undermines the joint work. Do you at all believe that some of Professor Gray's comments may have been reckless during this time?
No, I think that Professor Gray was articulating what we're all feeling, which is frustration. Many of us have penned things, we have written in the media that we are frustrated at some of the rationales and we don't understand what's going on there. So I might not agree with the tone of her comments. There were one or two things that I think she got factually incorrect, but to be fair to her, it was advised to her by certain clinicians on the ground.
And which part of that was factually incorrect?
I think it was the issue around malnutrition being seen at Paraguay's hospital, but I think it's also disingenuous of government to leap on that and to hold her and say, oh, you got everything wrong. She's articulating what the entire society is saying at the moment, which is, please explain the regulations to us. Why are they there? So that we can cooperate and partner with government. Instead, it's turning into a conflict that is, to my mind, certainly starting to lose the veneer of credibility that science is supposed to give it.
Now, I know there's an aspect of Professor Gray questioning why shops are not allowed to sell open-toe shoes, as, her saying that it doesn't make sense for shops to be barred from selling those kind of things. What do you now anticipate as a way forward? What is it that government is really not seeing and should be paying close attention to when it comes to this lockdown situation?
I think there's a lot of forgiveness in the system at the moment for government making missteps, for making mistakes, not doing it perfect. I don't think anyone could get this thing perfect under any circumstances. This is unprecedented time. But I do think that you need to have the humility to step back and say, we made a mistake, let's course correct. The president stood up and that's the last time he spoke to us and said, we made mistakes. But what were those mistakes? And what are the things that are being done? We have a situation where, government's been taken to court to be forced to issue statements saying that torture is wrong. We see long food queues where there's no social distancing. We're seeing, all sorts of regulations that don't make sense. Now, things like not being able to buy clothes, shoes, there might be a good reason for that. Just explain it. Then maybe it's about supply lines. It's maybe about factory capacity. But explain it to the community so we can get behind government. What's happening at the moment is the social contract, which I think most of the country actually is really firmly behind, is starting to unravel because the communication strategy from government is bad. And the way Professor Gray got treated by Department of Health officials, and lashed when there were lots of us staying up, both within the MAC and the scientists outside the MAC, isn't acceptable.
And very lastly, before we let you go, Professor Venter, what word of advice or perhaps some caution would you like to send out as a strong message to government during this time?
I would just take a deep breath. Everyone needs to take a deep breath. Understand we are all in this together. We really have the interest of the country at heart. But it's a social compact that we need to get behind, and we all need to just treat each other with a certain level of respect. We may not agree, but at least let's have the debate in terms of what these regulations are about, so we can all get behind what is a collective decision and collective well-being in the future.